afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this last session of the morning on the day 3 of Doha Goals. I'm very excited to moderate this session. I hope you enjoy it. Innovation is about taking risks, so we won't change the whole format of the session, but hopefully there will be a lot of engagement in this one. We'd like to discuss mainly and also two questions during this session. The first question is about where will the next sports innovation come from? Question for you guys. And the second question is, who will be financing this innovation? The title of the session is about elephant, right? Big companies. Can they dance? Can they innovate? Or is it about, look, entrepreneurs, new startups, to finance and to develop new ideas and to turn it into innovation? So to answer those two questions, we'll have a panel of 3 high-profile guests today. I think geographically wise, we have a good diversity of geography. And also from a profile standpoint, we have investors, former investors, we have bankers, and we have an entrepreneur as well. So I guess we'll have a good session, and I hope that we can engage with the group here, and we'll leave some time for questions. So let me introduce you to my colleagues here on stage. Andy BRUSMAN. Andy is a founder of Alchemy Global Holdings. He's been a long time, I guess, in a private equity and in sports entertainment business. And you're now like an investment banker, so you tell us about what it takes, what is your deal flow in sports entertainment. Laurent DAMIANI is you're the chairman, or the head of Inspiring Sport Capital, who is a European private equity fund. You tell us about, look, which categories you're looking at, what's the next innovation that you want to finance. And the third panelist is James Morgan, founder of xplorsport, seasoned entrepreneur, and former private equity manager, right?
Yes.
Good. So maybe to start the session, I'd like a bit the 3 of you to share what's from your perspective and from what you're doing in innovation and in sports. What does innovation mean in sports business? Andy.
Innovation. Well, there's several levels of innovation. You know, we're talking today about the elephants, as we referred earlier. I think in some cases, people think that they're unable to innovate, and I think what we're actually seeing is it just depends on the level of the market opportunity for these larger companies. But innovation is occurring from the startup all the way through to the larger global brands, and it just depends on what that ultimate market opportunity really is for them. So, you know, make no doubt here, innovation is alive and strong, and we're going to see, you know, great change in product launches and growth with companies in the space.
Laurent?
So, in fact, you know, I started a new job, and I was an entrepreneur, and I think about sport because I love sport, and sport is the thing what I know the most. And finally, I decided to launch a private equity fund dedicated 100% to the sports industry in 2 sub-segments, which is sporting goods manufacturer with a strong technical DNA and new technologies applied to sports. And I feel and I'm convinced that the innovation is in the small and mid-cap company, and I'm sure that we will have the opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you very much. So James, is the new innovation in sports coming from your company?
Well, certainly in certain areas, I'd like to think so. My background is the exact opposite of Laurent's. So I worked in investment banking and private equity my entire career, and then made the decision earlier this year to leave that world and be an entrepreneur and enter the sports entertainment business. My company is sort of set up to facilitate the multiplying the reach of the sport by bringing music to the events. And I think innovation in sport, the question of can elephants dance, which is a kind of the topic that we're addressing today, and innovation, yes, they can. And if you look at the biggest sports, if you look at, for example, Formula One, where every single season we see brand new cars on the grid, constant innovation, technical innovation. If we see in cricket, I mean, we've heard about cricket and earlier in a couple of the conferences today, or debates today. It's an old sport, and it was until spectators started to drop off that the sport had to completely reimagine itself, and we saw the birth of T20 cricket, which is a much more compact, contemporary, exciting version of the sport. So at the very, very top end, we see constant innovation, and at the lower level, with new companies like mine, there is a huge plethora of businesses that are excited to get into the space. So yes, they can dance, and yes, there is constant innovation.
Andy, what do you think? I mean, you're investment bankers, right? Focusing on sports and entertainment, if I understand well, but I'm pretty sure you have colleagues in other industries. So what makes the difference, right, in this industry in sports? Is sports so innovative?
Yeah, I think sports is absolutely innovative. You know, you can look at companies like Under Armour is a great example. Under Armour started in the dorm room at University of Maryland by Kevin Plank, and it came out of a need of what he saw as his shirt was too sweaty. In a short period of time, you saw Under Armour innovate. They were young, they were aggressive, and they've now become one of the largest, you know, consumer product companies in the sports category. Sports is almost immune to market cycles, financial cycles. There's always a thirst for it. So because of that, there's always going to be an attention paid to new products, new opportunities, and we're seeing more and more investment capital come into the space. It's individuals, it is the traditional private equity and venture funds, and actually, you know, I think one of the newest trends here is the corporate investment opportunity. We're seeing many of the larger global companies as a part of their R&D and innovation setting up formal investment funds to start making investments in these emerging brands. And that's been in the technology in Silicon Valley, but it's relatively new within the world of sport, and that is going to have a tremendous influence on the growth.
So you mean large corporations, they become agile, right? They gain agility.
They have to, and so you have to look at it, if it's a Nike or an Adidas, the market opportunity has to be significant in order for them to commit dollars to R&D and actually launch a new product. So there's several smaller categories. A great example, Storelli Sports, which has created the new category of protective apparel in soccer. It's not big enough for an Adi or a Nike to start on their own. However, once you start to see traction, it then becomes an acquisition opportunity for them. So again, it all comes back to what is the size of the market opportunity, which will dictate what sort of commitment they're going to make internally.
James, you've been on both sides, right? Private equity and entrepreneur. Is there something specific in a way financing innovation and new ventures in sports business?
Well, yes, I think so. I think whilst investors are looking for the traditional ROI as a private equity investment in sports, there's also a huge passion play and an emotional appeal to investing in sports, which is why you see sort of in the English Premier League and sort of in global soccer now, the soccer clubs are invested in by huge billionaires. The capital model around soccer is not particularly great, but the passion and the kind of excitement of owning a big soccer club and playing against Barcelona or Real Madrid and building your team plays into it, make it a very special and unique type of investment. So when investors consider the sports space, they fundamentally start from a point of their love for the original sport. And that's the same all the way right up to the guys that operate the sports. They're all passionistas, and they love the sport, which means that sometimes the economic model or the financial model can slightly be overlooked, just for the joy of being involved in the thing you love.
Laurent, what's your view on that?
In fact, yeah, I totally agree. And in fact, sports reflects the current value and aspiration of the developing and emerging countries. And in fact, it's a big business, and it's a big market, and maybe more than we can say and we can learn. And I was very surprised when I launched my investment fund to see that there is no other model in Europe, maybe in US, but not in Europe. And sports in Europe is not identified as industry, a full industry. And there are so interconnection in different fields of activities, in entertainment, in industry, in health, and innovation is everywhere, in fact. And I identify a lot of companies, and in fact, we can see that, for instance, the 30 sports industry companies have a EBITDA ratio average of 12 against 7 for all other sectors. So, in fact, the sports overperforms. And it's a very good opportunity to invest in this industry. And we have a scope in Europe of a lot of companies in sporting goods manufacturers or new technologies where to invest in different countries. And of course, in France, there are a lot of companies in the Alps with winter sports, in the north of Italy with cycling. In England, England invented a lot of sports, modern sports, and in the Nordic countries for new technologies.
Andy, I think we started discussion before being on stage. Are there any innovation clusters in sports? Where is the Silicon Valley of sports?
So I think where you need to start there is, I think, at the front line, and that is, who is selling the product and what trends are they seeing from consumers? Where is the demand? From a sports standpoint, I think there's a couple of areas that we're seeing a lot of attention and a lot of growth. The first is in protection and recovery, and it was evident, obviously, in the World Cup this year. Injuries on a global basis are on everyone's mind right now. And governing bodies, youth organizations, everybody is trying to tackle how can we protect our players more. So protection and recovery are very big areas. The second is wearable technology. Wearable technology is actually a great example of where the elephants are dancing here. And this is where, as a younger emerging company, you need to be a little bit concerned because it's attracting resources from non-endemic companies. The Sonys of the world are looking at how they can play in the wearable technology space. The third area that we're seeing is in content, in intellectual property and content, and that obviously ties a lot into the kind of the media side. But there is a great appetite from an investment standpoint in owning content that is proprietary, and that actually plays very nicely into what James and Explore is doing.
James, without disclosing too much about your business model, can you tell us about what is your view on the shift to digital from media, right? And the way people consume media and the way it affects business model of entrepreneurs like you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at a recent conference in London where we had the head of BT Sport there, the chief insight officer for Google, and the question, and a couple of other really influential people in the space. And the question was asked, how will people consume the World Cup 4 years from now and 8 years from now? And the kind of resounding feedback from the panel was, it won't be too different than the way the last World Cup was consumed. So what the message they're trying to convey is that it's very much still a first screen experience. But the interesting opportunity is, what additional assets can you provide through iPad or iPhone to enhance that original consumption of the broadcast? And I think that's a really exciting space. At all these events, the big World Cups, the Olympics, there are millions, if not hundreds of millions, if not billions of sports fans that can't attend the event. So in terms of content creation, what can you give those fans above and beyond the initial broadcast that delights them, that excites them, that's immersive, that's interactive, that appeals to the millennial category of consumers? There aren't too many big sports. really, to be honest, that provide that millennial interactive way of communicating, because it's still very new for the guys that run those big sports. They're older guys. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for big sport to create dynamic passion platforms for the new generation to interact with the sport.
Can any one of you speak about like one of the success story we'd be talking about, and there are more? Does any one of you want to talk about the GoPro of this world or the GoPro applications?
Well, I mean, I think the list is endless of innovation in sport. I mean, I struggle to think of another industry which has as much innovation. So in sports industry, we see everything considered from, you know, sports nutrition, food, protein shakes, energy bars, the clothes that we wear, the training that the training is constantly being reviewed and improved upon, the stadiums, the business practices, the marketing. If you take another big industry, let's say oil and gas industry, yes, there's technical innovations that improve the way we extract gas and so on and so forth, but there's not so much in-depth innovation across the board. So that's why I think, in my opinion, you can analyze any element of the sports industry and see constant desire for improvement. And I think the reason why is because those improvements translate to tangible victories on a field, to gold medals, to Champions League. So at the end of the innovation, there's a prize. And that prize is absolutely joyful for all those that participate. And that warrants and demands that investment and that kind of constant strive for perfection.
So is that only innovation for sports, or is that innovation for other industries? In the sense like innovation tested on the pitch, right, on the field, but that can be spread out across other industries.
It transcends. I mean, and look, GoPro is an interesting example. The founders of GoPro didn't wake up one day and say, we're going to become the most innovative company, you know, in this category by putting a camera on our head. I mean, they did it because it was fun, and they wanted to capture their own experience. And, you know, I think that's actually a key issue here, and that's the passion that goes behind the innovation. GoPro would very likely not have been launched by a global corporation. I mean, if you think about it, you know, you can think through all of the layers of bureaucracy at a larger company. If you walk up to somebody and say, hey, let's throw a camera on somebody's head and capture it from their perspective, I mean, they'd look at him and say, I mean, you're crazy, get out of the room. So passion had to overtake, you know, logical thinking. And that's how GoPro came about. So, you know, that's an important element here. Passion for a younger company. If you don't have it, it's not going to work.
So James, are you one of those crazy guys, full of passion?
Yeah, I'm an absolute passionista about what I do. And sort of my message to entrepreneurs out there, I think in the first night we saw that inspirational speech from George Foreman and his encounter with Muhammad Ali. And to be an entrepreneur, and to reference kind of what Andy's talking about, the founders of GoPro, no doubt they would have encountered a lot of objection and rejection and trial and error in the product. But it's tenaciousness and it's constant belief in what you set out to do that separates the greats. And in boxing, for example, I think what George taught us is it's not how hard you hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And it's the same in business. So when you have an idea, you just go after it with full determination, and then, you know, if the winds of change are on your side, you'll be successful.
Laurent?
Yeah, GoPro, in fact, it's not only a product, it's a media today. And the business of GoPro is to broadcast own events and their own performance. So this is very, very interesting. It's a disruption, in fact, business.
So would you say, from a sports experience, GoPro and the likes might disrupt, also bring innovation and disruptions into the media world?
It does, because it's a different angle of capturing the experience. You know, so previously, you know, I wouldn't have been able to understand what that downhill skier was experiencing from his viewpoint. You know, we never had that opportunity. Maybe from a mic, you could record them. Yeah. You know, and so that was a drastic change. I mean, all it took was one time to view that video, and anybody who was in extreme sports or anything else was immediately hooked. I mean, that's as disruptive as you can possibly get, and it's now added an entire new category as it relates to proprietary content. We come right back there again. It's proprietary content.
I think that the thing which GoPro and Under Armour and all great companies have in common, the founders of both companies resolved a problem that they'd both experienced. So there was no camera on the market that you could wear that was small enough to be able to capture your experience. Kevin Plank, everyone knows the story. Kevin Plank was tired of his cotton shirt being soaked with sweat after the game. So these guys didn't set out to change the world. They set out by trying to solve an initial problem they had, but because it was such a good idea and because of the mass market of sport, they could very, very quickly build billion-dollar companies. And I think there's only a few industries in the world where, from your bedroom, you have an audience which, if you solve that problem, they'll all want that product. And I think that's why it's very exciting for young entrepreneurs to be in this space.
And regarding the aspect of the industry, in fact, there is direct link, and this is very interesting because there is direct link between the public, between sporting goods industry and new technologies, because it's the same public. Finally, it's a fan who loves brands and who love technologies too. And there are a lot of examples of combination of both of them, and we talk about with my colleague of Babola as an example of racket connected devices connected, and it's very interesting to see how the brand create value with this new technology. But we have also, for instance, more classical technology like Look, for instance, Look Cycle with clipless automatic pedals. It's not new technology, but it's innovative product to grow at the international level. And we have also in media, for instance, a company in France which is Netco, which is produce it's a second screen content for second screen. It was official supplier for FIFA World Cup, and it's also a good example how to innovate and to create value in sports.
One thing in Babolat is a great example. One key piece of innovation, and it's innovation on its own, it's marketing. Babolat was a string company, and rackets up until this point, it was an old mold. It was from a company called Kenix in 1970. There was no racket innovation with Babolat. There was incredible marketing innovation there. The best the industry has ever seen. And they went from a string company to having market share of 70%. And it was not because of, up until this recent point, technological innovation. So there's also a huge opportunity here for a company to just simply based on marketing be viewed as the most innovative company in that category.
Yeah, but sport is marketing, and there is a big leverage with marketing to get in notoriety and awareness, image.
There's obviously an endless debate on what innovation is all about, right? Technology-driven or marketing-driven. I'm not sure we want to close this debate today, but we have a few minutes before closing the session. I'll leave the floor to you guys, whether you have any questions to the panelists. Is there a mic for you? Can we get a mic? You want to come on stage? Let's take risks. We have a mic here.
Hi, thank you for the discussion. I'm Kat, one of the student ambassadors representing Harvard Business School. We talked about the different priorities that investors have in this space. Do you think that's overall a long-term help or a hindrance to innovation in sports?
Great question. So, quickly, it depends on the type of investor. If it's an investor that has raised a traditional fund and has a time limit on that fund, it can definitely be a hindrance because the end goal is on their exit and their ability to go out and raise another fund. It's not always an awful thing, but I will tell you, patient capital that doesn't have to be returned within a defined period of time, in many cases can be much more supportive of growth plans and innovation.
Yes, a fund traditionally invests between 4 to 7 years, and maybe it's not enough to create value in sports and within more time, especially with a build-up strategy, because there are a lot of connection with those sectors, as explained before. So we need maybe more time in sports than in other industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think in certain sports it can be very, very dangerous to rely on the money of Russian oligarchs and billionaire investors to completely carry the capital model of a business. I think if you look at things like InnoSport in the Netherlands, which is a private-public partnership, a way to find innovation. It was set up by the Dutch government. It's universities, sports industry, and private businesses working together to create innovation and to fund innovation. In 2008, the model was designed to be a 50-50 public-private partnership, but by 2010, it was already 85% funded by private equity, private money. That is a far more sustainable way for sports industry to kind of manage its future, as opposed to relying on the passion of one very, very wealthy individual. And in soccer, we've seen numerous clubs around the world enjoy moments of success and then extreme bankruptcy when either the interest has fallen away or the money's no longer there. So dangerous thing to rely on one person. People are short-sighted and myopic and want success now, the fans, the sponsors. So it's going to be a challenging balance to get right going forward.
Any other question? You want to come on stage?
No microphone.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I'm from the Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. And my question is, I think there's a stigma attached with the sports industry, with it not being as lucrative and as profitable as other industries. Why do you think that is, and do you think that will change?
It's not been a traditional industry that the private equity industry has embraced up until, I'd say probably a couple of years ago. Other than consumer product companies, which would fit within a category of a retail or consumer-focused fund, there wasn't a lot of activity in the space. I think what you're starting to see now, though, and it's everything at the team level, to the success of brands like an Under Armour, people are looking at it and saying, I should have been there earlier. I think the final piece to it is that capital is always chasing new frontiers. And certain categories and areas of sports, health and wellness, these are significant new frontiers, and that is always going to attract new capital.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a big stigma. Maybe there was originally, but I think perhaps the stigma is in owning a team, that you could lose a lot of money just by specifically owning a team. But as far as the investment around, or the opportunity of investing around big sport, it can be incredibly lucrative. I think if you look at the case of, say, Mr. Eccleston at Formula One, he became a billionaire through the sport. The Dutch export market for sporting goods is 1.1 billion euros. So I think there is a tremendous amount of opportunity if you are, as Andy says, positioned in the right place at the right time, and you invest in the right things.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to our three panelists. I hope we won't stop the discussion here, and we'll have a good discussion over lunch to continue and sharing ideas and financing ideas to innovate in sports. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this morning's sessions. Task forces will begin promptly at 2:30. And the closing session will begin in here at 4:30.